Hello, gentle marketers. Welcome to episode number 46 of the Gentle Business Revolution podcast, the show where we talk about marketing your business by disrupting the current marketing paradigm and changing it to a gentler approach, one that's based on empathy and kindness. Nela Croatia, that's my name, and I'm the host on this show. And you know that you're in the right place if you are a heart-centered entrepreneur or change maker who is looking for a better way to market your business. Or you're an entrepreneur who's simply tired of the traditional marketing model, the hypey, pushy stuff, and are ready for a paradigm shift. Finally, you might also be a marketing impact pioneer. That's someone who's working in an organization who does business for good. Today's episode falls under the P of product of the Gentle Marketing Mandala. This is the P that also has to do with design. And just real quick, if you're new to this show, a big warm welcome. I'm so happy that you're here. I structure this podcast and the conversations around the 7 Ps of the Gentle Marketing Mandala. The 7 Ps are passion, personal power, people, product, pricing, promotion, and partnership. And that's based on the 7 Ps of marketing. And I just remodeled it into the form of a mandala and kicked some of the P's out and brought some new ones in. So seeing the Gentle Marketing Mandala and the one-page marketing plan that comes with it will help you better understand what we're talking about here. You can get your one-page marketing plan at sarahsanacroce.com/one page. That's the number 1 page. So I find it so interesting that once you're looking for people that are aligned with your values, you suddenly find them everywhere. It's the reticular activating system in our brain that helps us with that. For example, if you're pregnant, all of a sudden you see all these pregnant women around you, or if you're looking for a specific car that you're hoping to buy, all of a sudden that's all you see, that same brand. So it's interesting. And Nela Dunato, my guest today, is one of these people that is very aligned with my values. And we're both part of a community called Awarepreneurs that's led by Paul Zelzer. And when I heard her talk about her human-centered branding and design approach, I really knew I wanted to talk to her. So here's a bit of information about Nela. Nela Dunato is a designer and brand strategist from Croatia with over 15 years of experience building brands and digital platforms for small businesses and nonprofit organizations. She's the owner of a boutique branding and design consultancy and focused on helping experienced consultants to become authentic leaders. She's also the author of the book, The Human-Centered Brand, a practical guide that teaches service-based business owners and creatives how to create an authentic brand and grow meaningful relationships with their clients. Nela leads in-person workshops and classes, speaks at international conferences, and writes articles on design, marketing, business, and creativity. In today's episode, we address the word brand, which is often overwhelming for solopreneurs. We also talk about aligning our brand with our values and how that works, how to express our brand in a visual way, so that's the design part, and what's important when it comes to design. And we also talk about why her approach sometimes makes clients feel like they're in therapy. And of course, so much more. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Nela. Hi, Nela. How are you today?
Hi, Sarah. I'm doing great. It's great talking to you.
Yeah, so good to talk to you as well. You're based in Croatia. I don't think I've ever had a guest in Croatia, so this is exciting. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
It's wonderful. Yeah, we're both together in a community that's called Awarepreneurs, and it was Paul Zelzer who kind of did he introduce us? No, he didn't introduce us, but we're both in that community, and Paul is hosting it. So yeah, very excited to, talk about design and branding, and knowing that you're in this community, Awarepreneurs. I already know that our values are aligned, which is always a great start, right? When you have someone on your podcast, you want to make sure that this is a good fit for your audience. So believe me, dear gentle marketers, this is a good fit for you. So very excited to talk about human-centered branding and design. So Nela, talk to us about branding. I think the word brand when it comes to solopreneurs or entrepreneurs always is a bit scary. It's like, what's a brand anyways? Am I a brand or am I a person? Am I a company? Talk to us about branding.
Yeah, branding is a bit of a confusing topic because it has a long history and it can be interpreted in many different ways and it can be applied in many different contexts. So people are usually most familiar with big box brands like Coca-Cola or Apple or Samsung or kind of these big corporations that are kind of slapping their logos on everything, and there's commercials everywhere, and that's usually people's experience of brand as they see it from the position of a consumer, and that's what they're kind of how they learn about branding in the first place, and that's what kids learn. So we're introduced into this world of branding from the day one. I mean, even babies are wearing branded clothes and playing with branded toys, and so and watching cartoons on these big brand TV channels. So we are kind of swimming in branding, and there's a Zen story about a fish not knowing what water is because it has never experienced something that is not water. So it requires a kind of a mental shift to step away from the world of branding and marketing and advertising to be able to recognize what it actually is. And if you are a business owner, then you become a part of this other, you kind of jump the fence, and now you are in this world where you have to be thinking about your brand, because that is how your consumers are going to, actually customers and clients are going to see you. But you can have a brand as a person. So how you speak, how you dress, how you show up, the style of your photography and video, and just the general impression that you put on people, even as a person, is a part of your brand. And now people are talking about personal brands a lot these days, but it used to be just a thing for celebrities. So that's where that personal brand thing came from the world of, musicians and TV presenters and sports people and so on. But now every person can have a brand on their own, because on social media, you can have a big platform without actually being a proper celebrity. Then there are brands for nonprofit organizations. There are brands for causes. There is a brand for each city, for each country, for each region, even animals and pets. Like there's the grumpy cat and there's Maru the cat. So anyone can be a brand these days. And that's why it is so confusing, because then you ask yourself, okay, what am I? Am I a company? Am I a person? How do I brand myself? And to answer that question for small business owners, especially service-oriented business owners, that was the reason why I kind of came up with this human-centered brand framework, which focuses on the people in the business and on their common core values, and kind of brings that into this larger brand story, which you then present to the public, to the audience. And when you present a coherent story to your audience, that's when they are able to get the right impression about you, store you somewhere in their memory alongside other things that are of the same kind, to make a judgment on whether you're going to be the right service provider for them, or the right brand if you're a consumer brand, something like ethical clothing or ethical cosmetics or something along these lines. Also, they're going to store you in a certain box where people things that I care about are. And
I want to slow you down, Nela, because I think that is the key here. It is like, well, what's this concept that you came up with, the human-centered brand, right? So I want you to really kind of take us through it, and I'll be posting also in the show notes. You have this great pyramid on your site that I found that explains the human-centered brand discovery pyramid, you call it. So why don't you walk us through this, how you came up with that concept, and why it starts where it starts at the bottom, and then how it evolves.
Yeah. Well, I'll start with where I started. And that's basically, I was a graphic designer for many, many years. I started doing that when I was a teenager, and I was working very intuitively. Back then, I had some kind of understanding. I had a grasp of how things work, but I didn't really know how to explain it to other people. And
Uh-huh.
then it was over the years of learning from different marketing teachers, from different, things from psychology, things from business, that things kind of started fitting into a puzzle. And I kind of managed to get a vocabulary for things that I knew on a very kind of intuitive level that I could explain to other people and that I could actually apply systematically and show to others how they can apply that systematically and achieve better results than just waffling and not knowing in which direction to go and what steps to take and in what order. And so I have a kind of a nerdy brain. I like when things are visualized in graphics. I like when things have like clear steps outlined, although I do like spontaneity and kind of this creative freedom, but also I like to see how things fit together. So I have these kind of dual processes going on and tandem. And that's how the human centered brand came to be. It was basically something I was trying to reverse engineer, something that I knew, but I wasn't really sure what the pieces exactly were. And then when I discovered what these pieces were, I wanted to make it into like a very clear systemized thing that people can use repeatedly and get results from that, while having like a clear view, a clear map. And that's the purpose of this pyramid, is to provide people a map, a direction, and then they can apply it in a different way they want. So my approach is not to kind of, oh, you have to use it this way and you're not allowed to use anything else. No, absolutely. Do use it with other systems, with other blueprints. I think it's very flexible and it can be used with many different, even with your mandala. I think those two can be used in tandem. So really think that that's why I really kind of like this framework, which is very basic. So the pyramid has 5 elements. I call it 5 levels, just 5, not 50, which some books on branding are kind of trying to teach you. I kind of distill it into these 5, what I think are essential elements. And it starts with the foundation of core values. And I know you talk a lot about core values on your podcast. I'm sure your listeners are already familiar with that. But if this happens to be the first episode that they're listening to and they might not know what it is, so these are very essential kind of concepts. Usually they're like freedom, love, companionship, excellence, ambition, these big words, these big concepts that are governing our life choices and that we did not choose consciously. And we just kind of, maybe we were raised with it, or maybe we were born with it. And there are people who have very different core values from their family. I think that this is something that just happens maybe at random, or maybe there's some kind of a different reason why that happens. But usually values are not just something that we pick up from people around us, but it's also something that we are brought into the world with, and that it depends a lot on our kind of makeup, our physiological makeup. And this is something that you share values with some people, but you also differ in values with other people. And I think it's very important to, when you're in business, to work with people who share your core values. So to have colleagues who share your core values, and also to work with clients who share your core values, because then you're always in alignment with what is most important to you. And you know that you are spending your energy in a way that makes you feel satisfaction and fulfillment, which to me is essential for business.
I think that's
Yeah.
why it's so important to do this work on the values, and that's why it's the foundation, because it has so much to do with your ideal client, which you'll get to. But
Yeah.
if we are not really doing that deep inner work and figuring out, our core values, our worldview, then we'll always be just attracting any kind of client. And as I often share here, it'll be the wrong clients, and there is not going to be ease, there's not going to be joy. It's just going to be a job that you end up hating because there's no common vibration in a way. So
Yeah,
really, really important to start with the values. Yes.
I'm sure many people have experienced that when, there comes a point in a project or a client engagement when you realize this money is just not worth it. What,
Exactly.
yeah, because the way I feel right now, frustrated every day, dreading, you see their name, they're calling you and you're like, you don't want to pick up. Like that's something that you never want to feel. If you feel that in your business, you have gone way off course. So I think going back to those core values, I mean, even knowing what they are is going to make a big change. But then there are ways to apply that to ensure that you are acting in accordance, in alignment with those values. And
Right.
so what the human centered brand, this framework and this way of doing business and branding really is informing every piece, every step, everything involves those core values. So these core values then lead us to the next step, this next level of the pyramid, which is the unique value proposition. And the unique value proposition, for people who are not maybe into the marketing lingo, that is, simply speaking, the way that your business offerings differ from every other business offering on the market. So even if you're offering a service that is quite common, so for example, I offer design and there are millions of designers in the world, but I have to figure out a way that my services are different from other designer services to make a compelling case why someone will want to buy from me.
Right.
And this is very difficult. This is maybe one of the hardest things about figuring out your own brand, but it is important because once you figure it out, then marketing, it becomes very easy, very straightforward. You already know what to say because you know and you get confidence. When you know that you're the only one doing something, then there is no longer that feeling of scarcity and competition. And also there is, when you know that someone asks you to do something that you're not really into, and that is not your superpower, that is not your highest value that you can offer, then you just refer them away and you don't feel bad about it because you know that what you're here to do is to bring that unique approach, that unique perspective to your work. And core values are informing your unique value proposition because those qualities that you are bringing into your everyday life and your business are shaping how you do your work. And so I can even give an example. In my case, freedom and creativity and individuality are like my top three. I do have like top 5, 6, but these are the top three. And what I do in my work is I encourage people to be individuals. I encourage people to show their true nature, to show who they are. And I also encourage everyone to be free in who they are and to not kind of stay stuck in some like what is expected of a consultant in a certain niche, or what is expected from a person of a certain age or gender, to kind of defy those expectations and to just let their imagination and let their soul run free and reign their business in a way that will actually make them feel fulfilled. And that's kind of one way, but also it becomes very granular. It also becomes very, what kind of marketing decisions you make, because you're not going to do something that is going to feel unethical or misaligned with yourself. So you're going to make choices that are more, that feel good. Feeling good is like, it's kind of like that little point on a compass, which is telling you if you're going in the right way or not. And that's kind of how you can determine what you're doing, if what you're doing feels right. But okay, so I'm not gonna, I'm already kind of going off on a tangent.
No, but I think it's so
Yeah.
important because it's maybe a bit of a stretch, but it's so true that your brand also helps you with feeling good because you'll be attracting the clients that make you feel good. You will feel good because you're not hiding yourself, you're not wearing a mask. And so your brand in a way has to do with you feeling good. It's kind of like, wow, really? Like, how does that have anything to do with the traditional brand that we think of, like Coca-Cola or Nestle? Like, how does that brand have anything to do with feeling good? But for a solopreneur and an entrepreneur, it's so essential that your brand helps you feel good so that you attract the right clients.
Yeah.
So now we're at the unique value proposition. So then the next level is the brand voice. And I think that is really, where now we're really talking about branding and messaging and marketing in a way as well. So tell us about that.
Yeah, yeah. So usually this is where when you talk about conventional branding methods, they're going to start with brand voice and ideal clients and visual and so on. But I wanted to kind of go deeper. And that's why I started way, before people even start thinking about branding. But brand voice is really, when you think about it, it's really just an extension of the personality of the people who are working in the business. So someone who works solo, their brand voice is their natural voice. But for a team of people, their brand voice is like a choir of different people who are they are harmonious, and they kind of, the sum is greater than individual parts. But usually when you have someone in the business who is not aligned, they're going to be like a vocalist who is kind of off key, and it's just not jiving with the rest of the group. So brand voice is something that helps you communicate with the right audience in a way that feels easy for you. So something that you can do every day. If you know what your brand voice is, you can come up with messages that you can share on social media, and it's not going to feel like a drag. You can write newsletters that feel very honest and transparent and authentic. You can describe the benefits of your products and your services in ways that are just feel more like you're inviting someone to join you on this journey than about pushing your wares at someone who doesn't want them. So sometimes the matter of success of a product or service is just how you present it, how you explain it. And the fun thing about brand voice is that you can practice it every day. You can practice it in your everyday conversation. You can go out, okay, maybe today people are not going on these networking events and conferences anymore because we don't have them at the time. But it used to be like you go to some kind of networking event or a workshop or a talk or something, and you talk to people, and it's how you introduce yourself that you can practice every day until you land on an introduction that just feels like, oh, this sounded really good. I'm gonna use that introduction next time. And so how you describe your services, how you tell people what you do, that's a big sticking point for many people. And it's all a part of your voice. Just thinking about it in a very how do I want to express this idea so that the other person understands me, but it also feels like I can come up with it on the spot. That's not something that I have to kind of write and rewrite 10 times, but it's something that comes from my life experience, how I talk, where you grew up, the area where you grew up impacts your voice. The people you hang out with also impacts your voice. So it's some of these things you just can't change. And I think you should not. I don't think that people should be pushing themselves into a box of, I'm going to talk all corporate-y because my clients expect me to be all corporate-y. No, don't make that assumption. Maybe they don't. Maybe they find it refreshing that you're someone who talks in a very relaxed way, using everyday words that people can understand, even if they don't have expert training that you have. So I think a matter of brand voice is just being able to make yourself heard and understood, and feeling like you can do it sustainably day by day, and not putting on a mask, putting on, those big, tight, shiny shoes just to go out and feel like you're a professional person. Like, you can absolutely talk in your natural way, and you're going to be then inspired to share more and more and more and more, because it's going to feel easy instead of, yeah.
Yeah, what comes to mind here is my listeners may have already heard this, but I tell the story often of me hiding behind the mask and kind of hiding part of myself, hiding part of my upbringing. I grew up in a hippie community, and so I always felt like, well, that's very not business-like. I'm never going to say that out loud. And it's like this thing that you hide, especially because I chose LinkedIn as my niche in a way. And so by doing that, I never showed up fully. So the brand voice that people got, they felt probably that there's something weird going on, like the energy is just not fully there, right? Where now that I finally found my voice, I'm attracting the right clients because they can tell this is real and authentic. We often talk about this, authentic word. Obviously your brand voice should be authentic, but the word authentic has almost become like a buzzword where we're being told how to be authentic, which doesn't work, because obviously you have to figure out what's authentic for you. You can't copy someone's authenticity. So yeah, it's just so interesting, this brand voice. I want to go and talk about the visual identity now. The next level would be ideal client, but I think we talked about that. It's clear that once you have your brand voice, you really are resonating with your ideal client. And from there, the top of your pyramid is then the visual identity, and that's probably where the design comes in, right?
Yes, yes. So once you know like why you want to say, how you want to say it, and who you want to say it to, it's time to use the visual language to make that into something tangible, visible, something you can share with people across different mediums. So basically the visual language is like verbal language, but it's using a color and symbols and atmosphere, even letter shapes, things like that, that it communicates a specific feeling, specific emotions, specific moods, and you use that to your advantage. So the important part, why is the visual brand at the top of the pyramid? Why is it not something that we start with? Because you need to know what you want to communicate and how you want to communicate it before you actually do that. If you just start off with a blank page and you have no idea what you want to say, then your designs are just going to be, oh, what is trendy right now? What is expected in this area? What are other people doing? What are other businesses in this niche doing? Whereas if you're coming from your own, you're clear on how you want to present yourself. Now it's just a matter of translating that. And I mean, translating something is much easier than just coming up with something from scratch where you don't even know what your goal is. So visual brand is creating a visual brand is selecting the specific shapes and colors and lettering styles, text styles and photography, even things like tangible textures. Someone may need a packaging, so you need to come up with packaging that is evoking a certain feeling. So combining all that into a very harmonious kind of presentation, that when people see that, they immediately get on an intuitive gut level what you're about. Even before they hear your voice, they may kind of hear it in their heads if they see it written down in a specific font. So that's basically, you're using the visual medium not only as a decoration, not only just so you have something to post on social media, but as an added source of information. It's an added layer of information, so that when people see both your text, what that you've written down, and your photography and your logo and your color palette and how your photos are styled, in terms of colors and textures and lighting and so on, that they see, oh, I totally understand what this is all about, and I like this. This is made for me. I'm resonating with this. And they don't say that to themselves consciously, but they do. Their kind of subconscious is processing that in a specific way, because as I said, every person in the civilized, like, Western world is raised to be a consumer, and we really understand this language. Sadly, we understand the language in consumerism better than we understand the language of art history, but here we are. So maybe we don't have the vocabulary to describe how something makes us feel, but we do feel it. So if you see certain colors, you can get an impression, oh, these are luxury colors. I feel like this is made to kind of pamper myself or feel very very confident about myself. And then you see certain colors which are made, oh, these colors make me feel very attentive, like I need to think about something that is very important, like maybe a social issue, maybe it's like some kind of a campaign to raise some funds and they want you to pay attention. Or maybe it's something, oh, this is a very pastel color palette, it's made to make me feel relaxed, and that may be suitable for some spa or a massage therapist, use some wellness, or maybe even organic cosmetics or something like that. So there are these shortcuts that we take when we interpret what we see. And you have that saying that says, oh, don't judge a book by its cover, but we are totally doing that. Literally, when we buy books, we look at the cover and say, oh, this looks like trash, I'm not going to buy this. Oh, this looks interesting. And we're doing it to people. We are doing it when we shop for products, and we do it when we pick professionals that we're going to be working with. And this is not something we do on purpose or consciously. It's just something that we are trained to do, because all these decades of marketing and advertising have kind of shaped us to have like, this looks, if you see a nicely packaged product and it looks expensive, and you expect that it's going to be expensive, and you expect that it's going to be of a certain level of quality. But then if you see something packed in a paper bag, you expect, oh, this is going to be cheap, it's going to be affordable, and I don't expect this to last 10 years. So, you make certain expectations of different products, because that's what the marketplace has already had for decades. And if you come in and try to completely break those expectations, sometimes it can work and sometimes it can backfire. So that's also a risk you need to take. Like, do you want to play along with what other people in your niche are already doing, or do you want to be the completely rebellious type? But then you have to be the sort of person who can pull that off. So these are all the decisions that designers are making and are trying to kind of guide you through when you want to change your brand, either make a brand from scratch or revamp a brand that you already have because you realize it's not working. These are the sort of decisions that are being made. So it's not just superficial, like, oh, I'm just going to sit here and pick some colors and fonts out. It's a very elaborate process that then, if it's done right, the end result is that it feels like it's tailored for you, and it feels like you can fully stand behind it, and it makes you feel proud of your business, and it makes you feel like you can't wait to share this with your clients. You can't wait to share things on social media because it looks really good. You can't wait to give that talk because like your presentation slides are looking really good. You can't wait to share that blog post because that the reading experience on your website is just taking people into that world that you want them to come into. Yeah.
I want to just jump in here and also kind of talk about the change, the paradigm shift that we talk about, and how beauty really is already more important and will become more and more important as we're in this paradigm shift of going more towards the right brain. Up till not so long ago, it was mostly our left brains. And for me, I'm the perfect example. Like I'm just like, I built a business mainly using my left brain. But slowly people are more and more listening to their right brain, and the right brain is the one that judges, things that it sees by its beauty, by its emotions, by how it makes people feel. And so that will become more and more important, especially if we talk about the newer generations, millennials. They're much more right brain oriented. And that's why design becomes more important than it ever has. And people are interested in beautiful design, not just design like we are used to from, these big brands that are like, I'm just thinking of Pepsi or L'Oreal or whatever these big brands are. They're not exactly beautiful. They're brands and we recognize them, but they don't make us feel, like at ease, or they don't make us feel good. So more and more, the right brain will actually evaluate the brand and say, does that make me feel good? Especially for, service oriented entrepreneurs. So it's no longer just features oriented. everything we see, a product or a sales page, but also kind of emotionally oriented. Like, does it feel good with me? Does it make me feel like I belong here? Does it make me feel like our worldview is aligned? So all of these things are going to be much more important. And I talk about, the conscious client, what he cares about is this idea of being heard and seen, and also, yeah, more beauty. He wants beautiful things. So I think that's where this beautiful design, that's based on a worldview, that's based on this research on your values, is so important. And there's this line on your about page that reads, "My clients sometimes tell me that talking to me feels like therapy." And so that really made me laugh, because it's so true that we really need to go deep, into our values, into who we are, and in order to bring more of ourselves to our marketing, in my case, or to our brand, in your case. So I think that deep work, we just can't skip it anymore. It's so essential.
Yeah. Well, this has so many layers to it, but I'll just try to keep it, brief, and just point out a couple of things why this is important. First of all, so you're talking from the like a left brain, right brain perspective. I'm going to talk from the old brain, like the lizard brain, the mammal brain, and the human brain. And we know that emotions are ingrained in our mammalian brain, so it's something that we have in common with other animals. And so our sensory apparatus is very attuned to these emotions. So when we see colors around us, we know which colors portray food, which colors portray safety, which colors portray nice weather, like a clear sky, beautiful sunset colors, which colors portray danger of storm, being found outside without a shelter. And also we see animals in the world, like the butterflies, the bugs, the snakes of different like patterns and shapes and colors. And some of these colors mean don't eat me, I'm poisonous. And some of these colors, are just meant to kind of scare people and so on. So we have this entire language that animals have been using, but also there's this smell and touch and other senses that people are kind of not so in tune with anymore, maybe, than we used to be when we were still hunter gatherers. But essentially, this is something that is ingrained in us. So it's not superficial. It's actually connected to how we process the world around us and how we interpret, our whether something is safe, whether something is edible, whether something is dangerous, whether it's a threat to us or we are a threat to it. And then later we evolve these reasoning skills. And something that I've heard I've heard it from several therapists, actually, not just one, that they say, well, we actually, we have an emotion and we make a decision, but then we rationalize it to ourselves. It's not that we feel the emotion because we are thinking a certain thought, is that we're making up a thought based on how we feel, because we're trying to explain ourselves how we feel. So this is the same thing when you kind of encounter something, some kind of a visual leaves an impression on you. Like you are in a museum and you're watching a huge painting, like 2 or 3 meters tall, and you are so immersed in it, it's leaving a very big impact on you. And then you start making a story, but the emotion came first. And then you started thinking, why do I feel this way? Why does it make me feel this way? And then you go into your brain, your higher brain functions, your prefrontal cortex that's telling you all these things that you think about the world. But essentially, you felt it first.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that's the kind of point of the branding. Yes, we're kind of reverse engineering, because we want to get to that feeling, and we want a feeling that is really communicating what we want. But then the person is going to go first through this emotional, the sensory layer, and then they're going to dig deeper and find this additional information, which is learning about what your values are, which is getting how you're different, how you're unique, what the unique value that you provide is, and so on. But they're going to be met first with this layer of representation, which is sensory, which is visual, or maybe it's auditory, maybe use smells in your brand. That can totally be done. That's not something I'm an expert in, but I know people who are designing aromas of certain spaces because you want to, and that's also part of branding, the soundtrack that you put, maybe if you have like a space for a spa, the music that you pick, that's also part of the brand. So the sensory layers, very, very important, because it is tied directly into these emotional processes that are very old. I mean, they're ancient, they're tens of millions of years old. So that is also, if we're going to go into the kind of neuroscience-y geeky stuff, that's not superficial at all. It is really highly important.
Right. Yeah, I was just thinking as you were talking about the podcast intros. Like I really wanted a soft music with piano playing in the podcast intro, and you hear on some other podcast is like really loud and like, here's your host, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's definitely not me. I don't want to record or have someone else introduce me, and that just would not fit with my brand, right? And so it's so important. I never thought, I just kind of followed my intuition. This is the music I like, so hopefully my listeners like it too. But it's true, it would have been very strange if I had this like really loud pop music in the intro.
Yeah.
Music definitely plays as well. We're talking about your human-centered branding in pyramid, but I also want to mention that you've written a book that's called The Human Centered Brand, and people can get that at humancenteredbrand.com. What would you say that we kind of haven't touched on that is really important part in the book?
Well, something that I really try to explain to people who are maybe not from this, maybe they kind of have this aversion to branding and marketing, and are coming from it from a very spiritually minded view, very heart-centered view, and they wonder, well, how do I do this so that it feels good? Because I don't really like it. I don't really like the word branding. I think it has a lot of kind of baggage, even the word itself, the etymology. And I like to explain to people about the concept of resonance. And there's even a graphic, and the graphic is on my blog as well, so you don't have to read the book in order to see it. But basically, it describes you are when you're demonstrating your brand, where you have a clear brand voice, when you are clear about your unique value proposition, when you're using your core values to make decisions and to inform the topics that we're writing about, or that all these things that you're putting out in the world, on your website, on your social media, when you're talking to people in person, if you're speaking, when you're writing, basically you're putting out, you're like you're playing an instrument or ringing bells, and you're kind of weaving this it might even be seen as an energy field, if that's your thing, like how this energy is going outward, and then as people are crossing through it, they're moving by you, and some people will be like, this is not for me, this is totally not my thing. And then there are going to be people who are attracted to it, who are like, oh, this sounds interesting, I want to learn more. And when this thing happens, when these two minds meet, and there is a feeling of mutual interest, and interest in the curiosity way, but also interest, you may feel like a financial interest, and an interest in getting a certain value from you, then you have this resonance. That's when you know that the client is the right one for you, because you meet halfway. You don't have to pull them in, and they're like not jumping into your field uninvited. You're meeting halfway, and it's a feeling like you really hit the note that is within them. Like they feel touched, they feel like, oh, this is really interesting, this is really compelling, I want to know more. So that's how you kind of look at it. It's not like, oh, you're just blasting the things in the ether and waiting if someone's gonna come by. You're just disseminating this, what you know to be is true for you, and what you want your clients to feel, and what you want your clients to experience. And then the people who are the right ones for you, they're going to be attracted to that, and they're going to come to you because of this feeling of resonance. And everyone else who doesn't feel that resonance, everyone else who is just not in harmony with you, they're just going to move on, and there's no judgment in that, and there's no feeling of loss in that. It's just not their thing. So I think if you look at it from the standpoint of resonance instead of the standpoint of, oh, how do I make my brand all profesh and stuff, I think that makes it a lot easier, a lot more compelling to people who may be in this arena where they kind of resistant to that, but it is something that they need to think about if they want their business to succeed.
Yeah, I was laughing when you said resonance, because I couldn't agree more. I haven't read your book, but I definitely need to now, because my book is structured along the 3 R's: rumble, rise, and resonate. So yeah, this idea of resonance and, the frequencies aligning is definitely what my listeners are interested in, and to imagine that a brand is, in a way, branding is part of marketing, and it's all kind of, overlaps. So it makes a lot of sense to me that the visual identity also has a way of resonating with your ideal clients or not. So good. Yeah, totally agree with you. I want you to mention your website so people can go and find out more about you. And your website is just worth a visit. It's so beautiful. Obviously, you walk your talk, and it'd be funny if your website was not nicely branded, but it just kind of shows what kind of work you do with your clients. So please mention your website and again, where people can get the book.
Yeah. Well, my website is neladunato.com. So that's where I have my blog with about 200 articles on topics, not only in branding, but also marketing, business, creativity, well-being from the standpoint of a professional creative. So definitely, if you're interested in this, there's a lot more you can read about for free, completely free. And also you can check out my work, which is highly visual. So I take great pride in my visual skills. So that's obviously, I love tweaking my website. It gives me a lot of pleasure to keep updating stuff. And also, if you're interested in my book, you can download the free chapter from the website humancenteredbrand.com. Both British and American spelling work. They both, no matter which way you type, you're going to find it. And so there's a free chapter there, and some resources like the free workbook and different worksheets you can take, and so on. So if you want to learn more about this one, go check it out. And if you have any questions, you can totally reach out to me. I'm on many different social media, so feel free to email me or send me a message, and I'll be happy to chat.
Wonderful. This has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, Nela. I always end the podcast by asking what you're grateful for today. So what is it for you? What are you grateful for today?
Today, I am grateful for a beautiful weather, which is totally unexpected because there were like storms for the past 3 days and I didn't leave my house at all. So today I'm going to leave house, go out into the world and enjoy some sunshine. And that is what I'm feeling grateful right now at this moment.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for coming onto the show and sharing your knowledge with us.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been a great pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I enjoyed recording it. I highly recommend you go over to Nela's website because she truly walks her talk, and you will really see this human connection in branding on her own website. So go over to neladunato.com. That's neladunato.com. And if you're curious about her book, she gives you a free chapter at humancenteredbrand.com. Since we talked quite a bit about the inner work, I'm daring to mention my free Gentle Confidence mini course again. It's a short 10-part video course and also comes with a worksheet for reflection. And my hope is that after going through this mini course, you'll feel encouraged to be yourself, empowered to continue working on your competence, understanding that confidence can be learned step by step, and of course, enough. Because you are enough. To get access, just head on over to sarahsanacroce.com/gentle confidence. I'll put the link in the description of this episode as well, so you can find it there too. And remember, it's free. And another thing, don't see me as your confidence guru. That's not what I'm aiming at with this mini course. There are plenty of areas in my life and business where I lack confidence, and we'll have to keep working on it. Don't forget to subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast app to get notified about the next summer special episode that goes live on Wednesday. It's a summer series of conversations with clairvoyant Penny Pierce about the old versus the new perceptions and how they apply to business and marketing. And next Friday, I'll talk to Lisa Peterson about her new book, The Mindful Millionaire, and healing your money story. Let's be the change we want to see in the world. I hope to see you again here soon.